This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
You're listening to Beyond Boss Fights, gaming conversations with interesting people. And now, here's your host, Draculetta.
Heyo, everybody, and welcome to Beyond Boss Fights episode 21. Today on the show, I have a very good friend from DDO Players, somebody who I actually started podcasting with about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. We started at almost the exact same time on Lotro Players News, and it's great to be back on a program with him. So who is this mysterious creature of the night? It's the one, the only Draculetta on the show. And we're going to be broaching such topics as how has gaming affected your real life? One of the interesting things about having gaming as a hobby is that it tends to sometimes get compartmentalized, but there is always some kind of crossover between your hobbies and your real life, no matter how much you tend to try and separate the two. So this is something that Drac and I talk about today a little bit. We also talk a little bit about how our real life affects the way we game, and we may even talk a little bit about 80s heavy metal. Due to time constraints and the fact that this show was running a little long anyway, I don't have a what are the kids playing today, so we're going to launch right into the main topic. Hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, today we have on the show a very special friend of mine who I've done podcasts with in the past. It is the one and only Draculetta from DDO Players and DDO Players News. We've done a lot of things historically. We met first on Lotro Players News, which was part of the Players Alliance Network as well. Drac, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. As you know, I do love your show, so excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks. It's always fun to have a listener on the show, somebody I know who listens, because sometimes they will kind of anticipate where things are going a little bit better than somebody who's never listened before.
Right, yep.
So, as you know, Drac, we always start out with the definitive gaming history to give everybody kind of some background as to what you've done in gaming in your life. And we kind of wrap it up in a little 5-minute segment and put a bow on it. So why don't you launch into that for us?
Okay, I am really going to date myself with this, but I guess that's all right. My first experience with gaming ever was on the Intellivision. I'm sure you probably remember that, Brax.
I've seen pictures of that. I would say I only go back as far as the 2600, so that was probably just a little bit before.
Yeah, I gotta say that was pre-2600 because I had the Intellivision before I had the 2600. But I can remember on the Intellivision I spent probably more hours than I would care to share playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. That was my first foray into role-playing. And my first foray into Dungeons and Dragons, and that was on the Intellivision, and that was an amazing game for the time too.
So they had a version of D&D on the Intellivision.
Yes, that was the first time D&D was ever in a video game, and if you know you can think back to that time and imagine a game pushing the console to its limits. That's what the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons game did on the Intellivision. It basically did as much as they could do, and it was just an amazing game. Until to this day, I say it's one of the best role-playing games ever. And of course, if people would, I'm sure you could probably go on YouTube and look up videos of it. I'm sure there's videos of it, and people would see it and go, "Really? That's what it was?" You know. But back then, it was amazing.
So did it actually feel like an RPG, like we would think of an RPG today?
Yeah, it did. It did. I mean, it basically was an RPG, and then it was very true to D&D. So if you knew D&D, you picked it up pretty easy, and then you learned, you know, the RPG. They kind of added some RPG elements to it, which I'm assuming it was about one of the first RPGs, because I can't remember any other RPG type games out at that time. So I did that, and then I moved on to the Atari 2600, which I'm sure that's where most people probably got their start. And Pac-Man and Pitfall were my two on there. I loved Pitfall. Oh, I swing on them ropes all day. Then in the 4th grade, I got a Commodore 64. And that is pretty much where the quote-unquote gaming addiction, I think, started for me.
So you had basically every gaming system. Because those are the three that I remember historically.
I'm trying to think if there was any. Well, there was like the ColecoVision. I never had that one. My friend had it, so I used to go over to his house and play it. But yeah, I guess I never thought about that. But yeah, I did. I mean, at the time, because there was only those 3. There might have been one more. Because I don't even think the Nintendo was around then. I think
it wasn't.
Yeah, the NES came later, so. Got my Commodore 64, and that's, like I said, when I really started to get into gaming. Did a lot with the Ultima series, 1 through 5 on the Commodore. Those were just amazing RPGs. Then again, still to this day, I'll say Ultima 3 is probably one of the best games ever made. Hands down, I will still say that. I will stack that game up against any game. Then I discovered the Gold Box series. You're probably seeing a D&D theme running through this. That's played pretty heavily into my childhood, be it pen and paper or D&D. And then, of course, I moved into the PC then in the modern age and started getting into the MMORPGs. Dipped my toe into that with Ultima Online. Played that for about 2.5 years, 3 years. Then my friend talked me into playing EverQuest, so moved over to that, stopped Ultima, played EverQuest for a while. Then a group of my friends, we jumped into Guild Wars, the first Guild Wars, and we played all those forever. And then we decided to jump into Dungeons & Dragons Online, played that. And then that's about the time that we discovered Lotro then too. So we started playing Lotro. And then I kind of jump around from other MMOs still. I play like Guild Wars 2. Just started playing Marvel Heroes, as you know. Mm-hmm. And that's about it for, I think, my gaming, at least my video gaming history. As I said, I have Dungeons & Dragons pen and paper in there as well. I can remember maybe 3rd grade sitting in study hall when you're supposed to be studying, my friends and I taking graph paper and like drawing mazes, and then I would like DM them through those mazes then like the next night at my house. So
yeah, and you've been doing Dungeon Master stuff for a long time too.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I actually have been DMing, I think, more than I actually have been a player. I did, I still played, off and on, and I had some groups that I played with where I was actually a player, but usually none of my friends wanted to DM, so it just kind of always, I was the one that said, yeah, I'll do it, that's fine. And I really started to like it, and I still like it, and I still DM for the same group of people that I DM'd for back in 3rd and 4th grade. I'm still DMing for to this day, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is. So that's pretty much my gaming history in a little short snippet there for you.
So I think it's really cool that your first video game was Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and now that you are on a DDO Players news podcast, you kind of come full circle, and I think we're segueing into the main topic here, where how has gaming affected your life a little bit.
I never really thought about that until you just said that, but I guess, yeah, it did. Everything did come back full circle for me, and that, wow, that's amazing to have to think about. Because no, I never thought about that until you just said that.
Well, it may not be completely a full circle, because it does seem like it's been a common thread kind of throughout too. So it's just kind of expanded into something that you do now, even beyond the games. So as I kind of alluded to here, the main topic of discussion today is how has gaming affected your real life? And I think we're also going to see if we can get into how has your real life affected the way you game towards the end of the show. And I think this is kind of going to be a fun topic, because it's something that probably everybody listening can relate to. Gaming, if it's a hardcore hobby of yours, or even just a hobby, if it's one of many, it's affected your life in some way. I think it's probably fair to note, Drac, that you've already mentioned your affinity for doing the Dungeon Master role in Dungeons & Dragons. That's a very storytelling-centric role. I think that's something that probably has shaped some of the things you do even outside of playing video and pen and paper games. And we can get into that if you'd like to. But I guess I'll just pose the question to you right off the bat. How are some of the ways that the hobby of gaming has changed or affected your life that you can just think of right off the top of your head?
Well, I think you kind of nailed it on the head. Is the biggest thing I can think of is, and most people, that, know I do podcasts and have heard me on podcasts will probably be shocked when I say this, but I'm actually a really, really shy person. And I think gaming and being, like a DM and doing multiplayer online games where I'm interacting with other people and meeting other people has helped me in my real life, I think, not to try to be as shy when I'm around people. Because I'm good if I know you, if I'm with friends, or, if I'm like with acquaintances or whatever, I'm fine. But if you get me in around a group of people that I've never seen before and I don't know, I will be the one that will try to find the darkest corner I can go to and just slink into that corner and just hope that everybody ignores me for the whole time that I'm wherever I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's pretty common among people who kind of gravitate towards the video gaming lifestyle, if you will.
Yeah, but MMORPGs in general, I think, have kind of forced me to try to step out of that and to try to be a little more outgoing. Can't say, that I'm successful at it all the time, but I think it helps. Sometimes I just think, okay, let's pretend this is just like a game I'm playing. Like this, say I get invited to a party or something and I don't know that many people at the party. I'm like, okay, this is a quest in a game. So what would my character in the game do at this quest?
Pretend you're in The Sims and there's a little friendship bar over my head.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's, I think, the biggest thing that it's done is just try to get me out of my shell more.
Did you start seeking out a little bit more social interaction in-game because you were forced to do group content with others, or was it something that, as you played the game, you kind of felt a tug just to do because it was you had maybe this need for social interaction within the game?
I think it's just more, it just kind of happened. I tend not to, do a lot of raiding or whatever per se. So, but I will, if there is group content in the game, and most games now have some kind of looking for party, looking for group system, whatever, your particular game calls it. So I've met some pretty amazing people through that in most of the games that I play. Because usually you'll see in the, those looking panels, you'll see the same names come up a lot, mm-hmm. and you'll group with those people. And after a while, you start to know those people. And, maybe that will transpose to go offline and, you'll talk to them on Skype or on Twitter or on instant message or what have you. So it's kind of all a big extension of the game, I think.
It's just a kind of a natural progression, in other words. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm having an interesting experience with that right now because I'm playing Marvel Heroes a lot right now and just recently joined a newly developed guild, one that's tied to Massively Overpowered, where Sip is the founder. But this is the first big new guild that I've been in a long time, where I'm still trying to figure out the culture of the guild, and I don't know a lot of people real well, but I'm starting to see them in the game every once in a while, maybe once every 2 nights or every night.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of that weird area where I'm certainly not like when I go back to Lotro and one of my kin members happens to be on, which doesn't happen very often anymore either. We can kind of just fall right back into the old, almost like an old friends type of thing, right? Fall back into,
exactly.
We can talk about anything. We can bring up old inside jokes and still be funny, and we can talk about the time when we, went to and did the rift or whatever. It's just kind of it's more of a comfortable situation in the old guild versus I'm still in the other game. I'm going through the what is this that I'm a part of, and how do I fit into it, right?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like those people become your friends, and and it depends on yourself, I guess, like if you want to take that offline. And, when I say that, I mean, via like Skype or Twitter or something like that. I don't mean actually, like meet up with the people in real life, but people have done that. And, one of your earlier shows, you had American Golden Star on. Mm-hmm. And of course, everybody I think that listens to the show will know, American Golden Star met playing a game and now they're married. So, that can happen, and I guess it's up to you, but it's just, I guess I've never had the thing like you where I've been in usually the guilds that I start are like my friends, and it's usually my real life friends, and then, I get people, that I know online, well, if they're playing the game and they don't have a guild or kin or whatever, they'll come in too. So I've never actually got to experience what you're experiencing, where I just join a guild cold and don't really know anybody.
Yeah, it's definitely a different experience. I would say probably going back to the original question, for me, gaming has affected... Well, I mean, I probably wouldn't be sitting here doing this right now if it weren't for gaming.
Right. Oh, yeah.
For one thing, it's led into other types of content creation. Gaming in itself seems to be kind of a content consumption type of hobby. But to some of us, me in particular, and I know you, that leaves kind of a content creation hole still, that you want to go beyond just being in game, and you want to take the next step and kind of start talking about the game with other people, and maybe even publishing stuff about it or talking about it on a recorded podcast or whatever. So that's one thing that's kind of my real life has been affected by the hobby in that way.
Oh yeah, and mine too, big time, because and then again, people might find this funny too, that know how many podcasts I am involved with and have been involved with. I never planned on even doing podcasting. And it's just because it all started basically with a Lotro is how the whole podcasting thing started. It's just the game made that opportunity available for me, and that was kind of an accident as well. And it just kind of went from that, and then everything just kind of springboards from that. So it's amazing just what a quote unquote hobby you have can actually do for your real life and how much it can affect you.
Yeah, and I've noticed on Twitter you're very supportive individual. You don't tweet a whole lot, but when you do, it's a lot of times promoting the people that you know that you're friends with and things like that.
Definitely, yeah. I probably don't use Twitter the way most people use Twitter. I tend not to. I guess I do kind of share some, stuff, like if something happens to me during the day or whatever, I might, if I'm, hot under the collar about it or whatever, I'll go rant on Twitter about it, but who doesn't do that? But,
right.
Yeah, I do tend to, and I really do like to promote stuff, that like friends or just like online acquaintances or whatever are doing. So, my Twitter is pretty boring. If you follow me, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know. I get to see stuff about some of the computers you're working on every once in a while, especially when you're frustrated about them.
Oh, yeah. That's usually what a lot of my tweets are, because I get some interesting computers at times.
Have there been any negative effects of gaming on your real life that you can think about?
Not other than probably just lack of time for things, maybe. I say that in a way that I probably don't have enough self-control or moderation on myself to where, okay, I really should be doing X right now, but instead I'll hop into whatever game, at the time and just run a couple quests or do whatever when I know I should be doing something else. Mm-hmm. But then again, that's all on me. I'm not saying, I'm so addicted to, game X that it's making me play it. No, it's just me. It's just I choose to do that. So I would say that would be a negative. I could probably work on that a little bit. But
it's just a diversion that kind of pulls you away. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that also. And, this is interesting timing for this show because I just wrote a blog post about this, and Couch Potatoes did a show last week. They're part of the gaming and entertainment network that this show is a part of. And it was there was just a small segment in there where the host Islaine and Ari talked about some of the regrets that they have. I don't know how the question was framed exactly. I don't remember, but some of the things they mentioned were regrets that they have in their life, that they have things that they haven't done as a result of spending too much time gaming, for one thing, you know. And that struck me as kind of interesting because I think I'm more like you. I don't have what you would term a regret, but there definitely are times when I would, you know, when I'm probably spending, you know, maybe a little bit too much time grinding for a relic,
Yep,
as opposed to maybe, you know, vacuuming or, you know, helping out with, you know, washing the dishes or something, something
like,
that,
those dishes can wait till I run this quest or,
something that life requires. Now I
try to get this drop or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not belittling the importance of gaming because I think that, having a hobby like gaming that's a nice diversion is required in our stress-filled Western society, right? I'm a big advocate of do something you like. If you're going to have to spend most of your day doing things that you have to do, you need to have some things that you're choosing to do as well. So I'm not belittling that, but at the same time, I find it interesting whenever I write a piece that can be interpreted as a little bit critical of the video gaming hobby, or at least tries to kind of shine a light on maybe some dark areas.
Right, yeah.
People tend to get a little defensive about that because gaming is so important to them, you know, and I think it's important to take kind of a critical view of that and make sure that you are looking at all aspects of it and to be aware of what these things could lead to if you're not aware of them. If they're just kind of creeping into your life a little bit at a time and all of a sudden you look up and you go, hey, 10 years has gone by and I've missed X, you know.
Right. And, you know, that's a fine line to how you can be critical of it, but not, you know, being self-righteous about it too, which I think you did an excellent job on your article. That it was, you know, you were, I think, fair about it. It wasn't, you know, self-righteous. It wasn't preachy. It wasn't, you know, this is what you need to do and you're doing this wrong. You were just like, you know, hey, this is what in my life, this is what I do. This is how I handle it. And, I think that was awesome. And I'm going to have to go back and listen to that, episode. I haven't actually listened to that episode yet.
Yeah, it's worth a listen. Couch Potatoes, when they nail it, they really hit it out of the park.
Oh yeah, I have subscribed to that podcast for a while, and just for some reason I did not listen to that episode yet. So I'm gonna have to do that soon. Yeah,
it's some good stuff, and I would say, you know, there are little things. There's been times when I probably could do a little bit more physical activity. I've even thought about, you know, laying a barbell down here next to the computer desk so that when I'm waiting for something to happen, I can actually be a little physically active.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My friend, actually, speaking of that, he has and I'll have to find out exactly who makes it, but he has a pair of, it's like bike pedals that sit on the floor, but they're hooked up to his computer. And that's how he moves in game. He has to pedal to have his character walk or run. So and he was the one that I played Guild Wars with. And I mean, there was times when we would play Guild Wars, for probably 3-4 hours straight. And he would get to the point where he would say, dude, I have to quit for a while. My legs are so sore because I've been biking this whole time, you know, and he would end up biking like 50, 60 miles in a session that, you know, we were playing Guild Wars just from sitting at his computer playing a video game, but he was actually exercising.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I gotta ask him where he got those, but
I always kind of had to laugh at that Call of Duty achievement where it says you just ran a 5K because it's like, well, really, I just ran a 5K in front of my computer, but your friend's really doing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, he is.
He's probably a triathlete by now.
And he still has them. I was just, over at his house a couple months ago and he still has, cause I took my laptop and we were playing something and sure enough, he was in there just biking away. You're crazy, man. You're crazy, but God bless you for doing it.
Okay, let's reverse the question a little bit. How are some ways that your real life has affected your gaming life?
You know, I was thinking about this when you gave me the show notes, and I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I think my gaming life has affected my real life more than the reverse of it. I'm sure there's something that I just, once we hang up off of this call, I'm going to say, oh, that's what it is, or I'll think about it later. But
this is a tough one, but I thought about it a little bit too. And I touched on this with Sean a couple months ago, but the thing that came to mind was I'm a certain way, we all have our own personalities and likes and dislikes and the way we act in real life. I think some of that shines through in the way I play an MMO, for example. If I've created a character, especially that I think I mentioned on the last actual Beyond Boss Fights show that I have trouble playing even like Empire side or the dark side of SWTOR because it just doesn't really line up with what I want, what I aspire to be,
It's not you, so you can't even pretend to play that.
It's difficult for me to role play something that's that far from my ideal image of myself, I think is really kind of what it is. And so I think some of that shines through in the way I play. When I was playing a captain more in Lotro, one of my favorite things to do when there was nobody else around to group up with was to go run in debris and just start buffing people as they ran by. There was two reasons for that. I felt like it was giving to the people that were in town. It was like I've reached the point in my character's lifespan that I have this ability and I might as well share it with people. The other thing is it was funny to watch. I mean, I have a weird sense of humor, I guess, but it was funny to watch the characters that you could tell were new run through town, and all of a sudden when you gave them a buff and there was a little indication of that on their character, they would just stop dead in their tracks. Like,
what's going on?
What just happened
to me? Yeah.
Did I step in a puddle? What happened here? What did I do? Can I do that again? So I got I guess maybe a twisted, laugh out of that too, because you could always tell the players that hadn't been playing very long when that happened. And then you got some pretty cool interaction with those who are more familiar with that, who would stop and look around and find you and then give you like a tip of the hat or something before continuing to run on. So I think there's a little bit of myself in my characters. This is something I struggle with constantly, I think, is when I look at my character that I'm playing, am I playing him as myself, or am I playing him as an ideal version of myself, or am I just going to go completely off the wall and do the opposite of me? Some people like to play the opposite of them in a game.
And that's, as you know, that's how I am, because I never play a male character. I always play female characters in games. And people have asked me why, my friends, and I really do not know why I do it. I just always have. It's like, I guess I can think, okay, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, I'm a male. So if I'm playing a game, I don't want to be what I already am. I'm playing a game to escape from my real life. So I just choose to play female characters in games, which, a lot of people have problems with, but then again, there's a lot of other people that do it. I'm not the only, cause, trust me, half the females that you see in the games are not being controlled by a female player, I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, but then that's probably a whole other topic for another show. You could get into that, but.
Yeah, I don't know. When I first started playing, the confession time, when I first started playing Lotro, I did think that was strange, but it really didn't take me very long to get over that, honestly. I mean, I would start running into people and then I would go to the character creation screen and I never got to the point where I created a female character for myself in Lotro.
Right, yeah.
But there are other games that I've done that in. I think when I tried ArcAge, I created a couple female characters, and in playing Marvel Heroes, obviously there are female heroes that you play. And
right, yeah.
I don't give it a second thought, right? So
it's just it's fun for me, especially if you like get in like a pickup group and then you have mic on and then you say something and people are like, "Oh my God, you're a male."
Yeah.
And it still happens to this day. And I'm like, oh, it's hilarious.
And you can just almost hear them replaying every conversation they've ever had with you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did I ever say anything that's weird?
Exactly. It's like, well, you need to be more careful on the internet, people.
I recently ran across, we're going to kind of shift from the personal side now and get a little bit more theoretical here, I think. The BBC recently published an article called "Do Video Games Make You Violent?" And I know, Drac, I know we've talked about this. I know this has been around for years, but it's not going away because it's just not going away for now.
It won't ever go away, I don't think either.
So I was wondering what your take is on this, and in the show notes here, I put a prompt is this akin to the heavy metal music and Dungeons and Dragons scares of the 80s?
And I figured that was a little nod to me, so I want to thank you for that. So,
well, it was definitely, but also it took me back to, I don't know, I think anybody who ever went through a church youth group in the 80s had these conversations, right? And
trust me, as a D&D player, trust me.
Right.
I had an interesting childhood.
Exactly. I mean, when I played Dungeons and Dragons very sparingly as a young person, and maybe 2 or 3 times total. And I can remember my parents getting very concerned when they heard that's what I was going over to my friend's house to do.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And because there was just so much misinformation and what's the word I'm looking for? It's not coming to me. But there was a lot of misinformation out there, and it was kind of sensationalized. That's what I was thinking of. And it seems like people are always trying to find something to blame for behavior that they can't explain. Is that what's still going on here today, or is there something to this repeated exposure to video games that could possibly desensitize people to violence and in fact make them a little more aggressive and violent in and of themselves?
Okay, I will get up on my soapbox now. I have had discussions with a lot of people on this topic, and that's the first thing whenever there is, some kind of shooting somewhere or some kind of, violent tragedy somewhere. I will call up my friend and I'll say, I will give it 20 minutes before the news is saying, oh, this person played, this video game, so he was a Call of Duty player, so that's why he went into the, this X place and shot all these people. That video game made him do it. No, that video game did not make him do that. It's just like that gun that he shot those people with, that gun didn't kill those people. He or she, whichever, the case may be, killed those people. The gun didn't do it. The person did it. The person makes the decision to do whatever the person's going to do. Now, there may be contributing factors to it, like, if they have, a mental health issue that, they probably should not be playing a violent video game such as a first-person shooter. That's probably not the safest thing for them to do with their, mental health problem that they have, because they're going to be predisposed to repeating what they see in a video game and our, movies, our violent music that always gets thrown into. I just say no. It's all just hogwash. So the whole thing. I don't think I have not read one study where it has been proven by any scientist that watching violent movies or playing violent video games will cause you to become violent, unless you're predisposed to it already. And if there is a study out there that somebody can show to me, okay, I might change my opinion, or we can have a conversation about it. But until I see some scientific proof that's saying, yes, a video game can make somebody be violent, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I think I probably betrayed my views in the way I asked the question.
Yeah.
But I tend to agree with that. For the most part, I tend to agree with that. I do think that there is an aspect of desensitization that can happen. I don't think it causes people necessarily to go out and be, terrible people. I see it in my kids. My son is in high school now, and they're a little bit more lenient in high school, I think, because they understand high schoolers and especially high school boys. They go through these weird phases of, I would say he's into dubstep now, and he downloaded this, these songs from this band called Knife Fight that I'd never heard of. But their logo is kind of an outline, and you unless you know what you're looking for, it's actually kind of clever. You can't really tell, but it's an outline of like a person's head with a knife through it. And he drew this logo and was going to put it, on on his folder or something. I said,
"Ooh, that's probably not the best thing to do in a school these days.
You got to be careful with that. You got to be careful with that." But
Yeah.
he said, he reminded me, he said, I saw people today walking around with Walking Dead t-shirts that look worse than this. And I said, well, that's
He's got a point.
That's
there.
kind of a good point.
Yeah, it is. Good to say, yeah.
And
2 points for him, yeah.
I want to say that didn't happen when I was in high school, but then I do remember some pretty graphically depicted Megadeth t-shirts and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna say it was all like the metal t-shirts, or people drawing like the metal, like the Slayer logo that had like the pentagram in it. So, then you're a Satan worshiper because you drew a pentagram. No, it's a logo for a band. It's like,
yeah, it was designed to look a certain way so that young teenage boys would buy the album.
Exactly.
Right,
yeah. I mean, it's metal music. That's what metal music is for. It's for teenage boys to get their aggression out with, headbanging or whatever. So.
Yeah. I brought up the D&D and the heavy metal music in the question kind of on purpose because it does kind of seem like this type of stuff is cyclical, and nobody's really blaming heavy metal music for violence anymore, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. No, now it's all rap.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like gangster rap is getting the what metal used to get back in the 80s and early 90s. Now it's
and if the listeners don't, if you guys are too young to know what we're talking about, there was actually these videos, VHS videos that you could watch that they went into excruciating fake analysis of bands and songs, and they listened to music backwards, and they claimed that they could hear these hidden messages that your brain was interpreting as it listened to the music forwards. And it was just it was a really interesting marketing / smear campaign against heavy metal music by, very conservative religious groups. And I'm not saying that you can't be influenced by things that you hear over and over and over and over.
Exactly, yeah.
But at the same time, some of this was just so ridiculous. Even a 15-year-old kid would be looking around the room going, did somebody seriously put time into this?
Yeah, oh yeah. And then if, one of the best cases, if anybody really wants to know an example of what we're talking about, look up, back in the, I want to say maybe mid-80s, Judas Priest, the metal band Judas Priest, got sued by 2 parents of kids that committed suicide. And their lawyers claimed in one of their songs, if you played it backwards at a specific spot in the song, it said, "Get the gun, shoot."
Oh, yeah.
And
that's right.
They actually, in court, they had to play this back, and they had to play it back like hundreds of times because the judge couldn't hear what they were supposedly saying. And finally, they just asked the band, it's like, okay, did you intentionally do this? And they're like, no, we just wrote lyrics and we sang a song. And then they had some sound engineer that came in and said, okay, yes, the way the words are saying, if you play them backwards, your mind could interpret it. That's what it's saying. But then again, you have to listen to it backwards to hear that. And I don't know. I mean, I don't tend to listen to my music backwards, but maybe some people do if that's what they want to do. That's on them. But it was just crazy. And then the whole, Dungeons and Dragons thing where, it was evil and you were Satanist, and they had, those tracks. The famous one is one called Dark Dungeons. You can probably look that up online. I'm sure you can find it about, basically it was from a religious group that this girl played Dungeons and Dragons, and then, that was teaching her how to cast real spells, and then she ended up like killing a bunch of people because she wanted to move to the next level in the game, right? But she did it in real life to do it in her game. So it's just, but then again, I guess you can say the same thing happened, way back in history. Look at the Salem witch trials.
Exactly.
That was basically the same thing. It was, mass hysteria that was, created to scare people or, to make sure that your kids behaved. And so, this is it's like a new phenomenon because it's been going on probably since the dawn of time. I'm sure, cavemen probably had stories like this, that they told their kids to scare them too. So
from what I've observed of life, there's always unexplainable things happen in life, right? And people are always trying to make sense of unexplainable things. You know,
Right.
an unspeakable tragedy can happen. And the first thing anybody wants to know is, why did this person do this? And usually the answer is, there's not a good reason to do this, ever. So
Exactly.
why are you looking for a reason? You know?
Right. There is no reason for what this person did.
Right.
It's like I said, I think it all boils down to the person themselves. Some people might be predisposed to that, and that usually tends to be, you know, that they need some form of like mental health help. Like, you know, they might be depressed, or they might be schizophrenic or something. And we've come so far in medicine that, you know, people that have those conditions can live normal, happy lives. And there's probably thousands of people that do live normal, happy lives with that conditions, because they're, you know, they're seeing professionals and they're getting, you know, the help that they need, and they're getting the medication that they need. But then you get that one person that maybe stops taking their medication, or just maybe has never, you know, been diagnosed or never went to the doctor, and then they go do something, you know, horrible somewhere. You know, they'll kill 2 or 3 people, or just one person, or whatever. And then that's when, like you said, people try to find, you know, a reason why something horrible happened. Well, they go into that person's house and, oh, well, here's a heavy metal album laying on the, you know, the shelf, or, you know, oh, he was watching, you know, a horror movie. So he saw, you know, people getting stabbed in this horror movie. So he, of course, had to go out and stab people in real life. Or he was playing, you know, this violent shooter game, or he, you know, cast spells in this, you know, RPG he was playing. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that's what made him do it. That's the reason we have for it.
I think the real important question here is, if you listen to the Lotro soundtrack backwards, does it make you want to read Harry Potter?
It's all an evil plan by Warner Brothers. That's what it is.
So not to now that we've gone down the dark side here.
That's right. I
did want to bring up an interesting, real life story that I found on the internet from The Guardian. And this article that I will put in the show notes was written by Keith Stewart, and it was a very cool little piece about how the author's son, who was autistic, discovered Minecraft, and also through discovering Minecraft, discovered the way to interact socially with other people. And it wasn't it wasn't like an overnight thing. It was a very slow process, but it was something that his son could relate to that was different than a face-to-face conversation, which was very uncomfortable and difficult for him. But through this medium was able to express himself and start to interact with others, specifically his brother at first. And I think that kind of translated into the ability to interact with other people even better too. So it was kind of a feel-good story that I thought I would pop in there, kind of to maybe lighten the mood from the last bullet point here.
And I'm glad you put that in there, because I didn't see this at all, or I didn't hear anything about this, and I read that, and that was just amazing. What, you know, because you hear, you know, about Minecraft all the time, but I had never heard this aspect of Minecraft, and it's like, that is just awesome for that kid.
You know, I think I've said before, my son has ADHD, and he doesn't have extreme difficulty interacting with people, but certainly, I think being able to interact through an online game, at the moment he's playing a game called Gary's Mod, and it's weird. I don't even know how to explain it. I'll have to have him do it on What Are the Kids Playing at some point.
Yeah, that is a pretty bizarre. I've looked at that and I can't understand it. So.
But I think the point is that he's getting online social interaction through voice chat and things, and through a shared experience that helps him to kind of create these baseline friendships for high school that he might not have otherwise.
See, so it's good to see the positive side of gaming, because it is out there.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't like to, I think maybe I spend a little more time trying to shine the light on some of the more questionable aspects, just because the group that I hang out with here are so pro everything. I feel like I have to balance the scales every once in a while. But I agree with you, Drac. I think for the most part, it's like anything else. If you approach it the right way, it can be very positive.
Oh, exactly.
just wanted to call your attention to a few things this month. First of all, the first episode of Middle-earth Lore was released. Actually, it came out about the same time as the last episode of Beyond Bossfights, so it's been out about a month. But if you haven't heard of this, this is the lore series that Andang, my first guest ever on Beyond Bossfights, is doing on YouTube, and it's about Middle-earth. It's about the lore in Middle-earth, and it's done with a kind of documentary-style YouTube type thing. And I'm actually doing the voiceover narration for that. Now, one day I will tell everybody of the pain of trying to pronounce Sindarin words as a Midwesterner from the United States, but today is not that day. But if you haven't seen this yet, go ahead and check it out. It turned out really well, and I'm really, really proud to be a part of it in some way. So it's a quality video. Another thing that is near and dear to my heart is that I posted on my blog this past month that I'm once again going to be participating in the Extra Life Marathon, and I'm going to be asking people for donations. It's kind of like a fundraiser for children's hospitals. I'm playing again this year for the St. Louis Children's Hospital, which is one that I have a personal connection with. So I have a post on my blog that is sticky to the top, so no matter how many posts I put out there between now and the Extra Life event, it will stay at the top. And it basically what this post does is it describes a few different ways that you can help out if you want to support my Extra Life drive. Along those same lines, the Gaming and Entertainment Network is going to have an Extra Life team this year. So basically, kind of like we did last year with Lotro players having a team, I'm doing it with TGen this year. So we have a couple signed up already. You don't have to be a TGen podcaster to be on the TGen Extra Life team. All you have to do is want to participate in Extra Life by doing your own fundraising. And anything you raise at that point then goes towards the team goal as well. So it's just kind of a fun way for those who are participating to have a little bit of friendly competition and also use shared resources and teamwork to continue to raise funds for the kids. The featured TGen show this month is Aggro Chat, and thank you, Belgas, for this fantastic podcast. It does not stand for aggravating chat. It's actually an MMO term. So, Belgas, go ahead and explain what this thing is.
Hey folks, I'm Belgast of the AgroChat podcast. What is our podcast, you ask? Well, the idea is really simple. Get a bunch of friends together, hit record, and see what happens. If that sounds interesting to you, you should totally check us out. We're a proud member of the Gaming and Entertainment Network at tgenetwork.net.
Okay, as for feedback this month, we actually have a lot of feedback this month because it's been a couple months since I did it. Of course, you remember last month was the TGen Tribunal that was Beyond Bossfights 20 also. And if you haven't heard that yet, please go back and listen to it. It wasn't a normal episode, but I thought it turned out really well anyway. This month I got a few comments on the episode that Sean was at. Sean from Contains Moderate Peril podcast and Gaming Conjecture. That's the name of his blog. And this was on that. These were comments that were left on that show. Fredulous commented that, just to set this comment up a little bit, we did talk a little bit about Lotro because Sean was an ex-Lotro player and I also play. So we talked a little bit about the implementation of their free-to-play model. Fredulous says, I originally enjoyed Lotro's free-to-play implementation. They stuck to their 5 C's of selling content, consumables, cosmetics, concierge services, and convenience. However, as the years went by, it seemed like the developers were constantly pushed towards engineering more inconveniences into the game. Gameplay systems that previously featured reasonable goals were expanded into unreasonable grinds. The design of the game made these systems increasingly inscrutable to newcomers, but obvious buttons to click and pay to progress through them were always front and center. The thing that really drove me crazy was the addition of Hobbit Presents, which is basically a slot machine to take your real money and maybe, if you're lucky, give you something back that you can actually use. This seems so disrespectful to the world Tolkien created. No self-respecting Hobbit would give you a random gift on his or her birthday, then turn around and offer you the chance to buy another.
Oh, that's great, Brett Ellis.
Yeah, and he goes on to say, I don't consider myself a Lotro player anymore, but I will still log in once or twice a week to enjoy the game world and connect with friends. So I'm glad Turbine continues to operate the game. Yeah, so I guess as far as the grind goes, we had some people comment that, or I've read comments that said, I think Pastul might have been the one who brought this up, Actually, oh no, this is in the next comment. I'll wait till the next comment to talk about this. But as far as Hobbit presents go, honestly, they didn't really bother me that much. I understand what you're saying here, Fredulous, and it makes absolute perfect sense. But for whatever reason, at the time they were implemented, as a gamer, I just thought, okay, they're going to give me free stuff. I don't really care.
Yeah, and I was kind of the same way, too. I wasn't quite sure what the uproar over them was that a lot of people had. Because I've seen Lotro do worse things than that I probably would have been more upset about than a free Hobbit present. Yeah. But, and it's kind of funny though. Can kind of see this from both angles because I played DDO as well, which is another Turbine game, and it's a free to play game. But that game is so much different than Lotro. And the reason why I say that is there is never anything in your face that's saying, well, if you want to do this, you can go to the Lotro store and buy this to get around it. And even the Lotro store itself, how if you play Lotro, it's always on your bar right there. You see the button all the time. In DDO, you actually have to go into the main menu to go into the store. There's no store button on the UI.
Nice.
The only thing that, they do, there is like for their raids, you can buy the raids are on like a 3-day timer, and you can buy an item in the store that will bypass that time. And if you try to go into a raid that you've already done and you're still on your timer, you do kind of get a reminder, hey, you can bypass that in the store. But DDO for some reason is not quite as in your face as Lotro is. And I never could figure out why there was that big distinction between the two games. And DDO actually went free to play first.
Yeah, you would have thought they would have patterned it more after what DDO had done.
Yeah, and at first Lotro did, but then like Fredulous said, all of a sudden it kind of, because I remember the big uproar in Lotro was where they had said they were never going to put armor in the store.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, there's armor in the store. So it's like, but I'm like, and then DDO has a Hobbit present type thing. They call theirs a daily dice, to where every day you can roll a D100. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you get, like a 90 to 100, you get a way better free gift than you would, if you roll lower. And then if you're VIP, once a week, you can roll a gold roll, which is kind of like in Lotro where you can do your gold Hobbit present. And then with that, you can buy more, rolls of that if you want. But then again, I don't know how many people that do. I don't do it. I get my free ones and I move on with my life.
Yeah, I think we took a poll once on Lotro Players News, and I don't think anybody had ever bought a Hobbit present before.
Yeah. And like I said, to me, if and like I said, I'm not knocking anybody that plays that way, but if that's how you play and you spend your Turbine points on the Hobbit presents, pretty sure there's better things you can spend your TP on, but to each their own.
Right. Pastool also writes in, he says, thinking about it, I'm not sure the Lotro grind is really a function of free-to-play at all. The grindiest Slayer deeds were in Angmar, or Angmar, and Moria.
I wasn't going to say anything.
And as far as I know, they were there before free-to-play ever came along. Not that I was around then. I suspect that grinding is more of a function of old-fashioned game design. By all accounts, sub-only MMOs back in the day weren't short of grind, nor other game mechanics that would tax a modern player's patience, waiting ages for a mob to respawn, long treks to get to the start of an instance, etc., etc. If anything, Lotro has been trimming the numbers of mobs needed for deeds in the time that I've been around, not increasing it. Okay, so let me go back a little bit, and I think I made a comment that triggered this in the podcast. And really what I was thinking of was, I don't know that they have increased the number of mobs needed for Slayer deeds in Lotro. I think it's pretty consistent with what is in Angmar and Moria. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but it seemed like it was like, I don't know, maybe 120 for the first tier and 350 for the second, or something like that.
That sounds pretty close to what it is.
Yeah, and I thought they were all pretty consistent. I think my point was that they've done a lot of quality of life improvements to that game as time has gone along. One of those things has not been to trim down the number of mobs needed to finish your virtues and traits and things. They've chosen to leave that at the grindy state that it was at the very beginning of the game because they sell Slayer deeds in the store. And I think they've even admitted design choices like that in the past to certain publications and things. It seems like Sip had said something about that in one of his articles. So that's really more what I was thinking of rather than actually increasing the amount of grind for free-to-play. They have just made design choices that better support the free-to-play cash shop model since going free-to-play.
The thing I think that how free-to-play gets the grind rap, I think is because of the Korean MMOs. Those are the grindy games you'll ever play in your life. If you've ever played one of those, you know what I'm talking about. Everything in a Korean MMO, free-to-play MMO, is a grind. Mm-hmm. I don't care what you're doing. You could be walking down the street to go to the next quest. You're going to grind to get there. That's just that model. And I think people automatically attribute all free-to-play MMORPGs as to being like that. Yes, some games are grindier than others. That's just a given. I mean, I've tried a couple different games, and they got too grindy. Like ArcAge is a perfect example.
Right. I think that's the whole deal. We've had grinding conversations before.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny for me to complain about grind because I'm playing an ARPG right now where all you do is grind for gear. But yeah. I'm loving it at the same time. There's just something about that right now for me at this period of my life this is the game for me, and it's probably grindier than Lotro is if you're going to line them up side by side. But
then again, that's a perfect example, though. I think some games do it better. Some games will present the grind to you better where it doesn't actually seem like you're really doing the grind.
Right.
But in theory, that's what you're doing.
Next one, I'm going to try and get through these because there's a lot. Tomioric. Thank you, Puckbiter, for making a comment here. In a sense, I think there are two levels of quitting an MMO. If you remember, that was actually the topic of the episode 2 months ago. Quitting your MMO. There is the this game sucks and I'm out / uninstall level, and the I was playing game A, but now I'm playing game B level. I don't think I've ever gotten so upset that I quit / uninstalled a game because it was that bad. Furthermore, I don't think you really quit a great game. It just sort of fades into the background as a new great game takes its place. I can recite a ton of games, including Lotro, where I thought, this is so awesome, I'm going to play this forever. As I look back, I don't recall quitting any of them. They just sort of got replaced by the next latest and greatest. Yep. I find that whole comment pretty hard to disagree with.
Oh, yeah, I do too. I mean, he nailed it perfectly.
Yeah, so thanks for boiling my podcast down to 2 paragraphs. Islaine, as we mentioned before, host of the Couch Potatoes podcast, left a comment that says, quitting MMOs is a thing, but then not a thing for me. For instance, I quit EQ2 after playing it for several years, but have started up playing it again multiple times. So like you, I think I just take a hiatus here and there. The only game that has been constant for me the past 4 to 5 years is League of Legends, which doesn't really constitute as an MMO, but surely holds my interest. Yeah, I do think we have certain games that we continue to return to more often than others. Some do completely fade away, and some it seems like we'll go back to. I've gone back to Lotro just a little bit here recently, just every once in a while. I still haven't dove right into the epic content because I'm still so depressed that it's dark in Gondor, for one thing. But I did try some of the new episodic stuff back in the Shire. And I found that to be a really nice change of pace. I know there's nothing real deep and heavy about it. It's kind of a lighthearted little romp. It's a lot of running back and forth and picking up flowers and pies and things. But, I think I said this on one of my streams. In contrast to what's going on in the epic part of the story right now, I think it's a nice change of pace. And I think it was a really good idea to make it a change of pace as opposed to something that's really big and lore heavy and heavy,
And it is, and I think they do what Turbine and Lotro does well. It's written so well that you're engaged in it. And that's why I think you can, overlook the fact, okay, really all I'm doing is I'm running from point A to point B and then back to A again. But I'm so engaged, engrossed in the story because I want to see, what's going to happen to this little hobbit here. What's he having me do now? Mm-hmm. That it's just, it's fun. And like you said, it's a great change of pace.
We had a couple of iTunes reviews. Oh my gosh. Thank you. We're up to 10 now, and even 10 iTunes reviews. Okay, enough about that. So one was left by Draven03. It says, great perspectives. Thank you, Drac, for participating in those great perspectives tonight. Really interesting topics, well discussed and presented. I always look forward to the next episode as soon as I finished one. Which is cool. I'm sorry I only do one a month.
I know, that's the only bad thing about your show. It's like, oh, that show was great. Oh man, now I gotta wait until next month for another one.
But here's the great thing about it, right? This is episode 21. If you're just discovering it now and you're binging it, wow, you got a lot of content.
That's right. You got plenty of content to binge through.
Second one says, need more Beyond Boss Fights by Cray Ambler. Well organized, lighthearted, and interesting. I look forward to this podcast showing up as new each month. So thank you guys for your iTunes reviews. If you'd like to leave me a review on iTunes, we're out there. You can also send me your feedback at braxwolf@gmail.com. I'll read it on the podcast. You can leave a comment on the show notes for this show as well. And as you can tell, we've been kind of reading those off and getting into some discussions about them also. Beyond Boss Fights is also on Stitcher. We'd appreciate your ratings and reviews over there as well. We're also on Player FM if you prefer that application on your mobile, smart, or dumb phones. Add it to your playlists.
Dumb phone. That's awesome.
It's probably not even on a dumb phone. Draculetta, thank you so much for being here. It's very fun to have somebody that I know on. It's a little bit less pressure on me, and I hope it wasn't too much pressure on you.
No, it wasn't. I really enjoyed myself, and I hope everybody else enjoys it.
Would you like to jump into your contact information?
I sure can. You can follow me on Twitter at Draculetta_72. I am the lead director of DDO Players, and that is at ddoplayers.com. We also do a weekly podcast, and basically on DDO Players and the podcast, we cover everything Dungeons & Dragons Online, Dungeons & Dragons pen and paper, and we're also starting now to do other tabletop and role-playing games. So if you're into any of that, check us out, because we do little reviews and we do interviews with, and I just got back from Gen Con, so we did a lot of interviews with some game developers and such like that. So check us out there. And if you'd like to email me, my email is Draculetta88@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And as for me, you can find me on Twitter at Braxwolf. That's BRAXWOLF. You can email me at braxwolf@gmail.com. I'm on Nook, Facebook, YouTube. You can just Google and find me on those things. Or you can always visit my blog at braxwolf.com. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next month. Okay, I think that's probably it, Drac, for the discussion points.
Believe it? Do you think?
Believe it or not, we're already 42 minutes into the recording. So
really, okay. You think that's good? You think you got enough? That's
sure. Yep.
You think it's going to be a decent? It seemed like we had a good conversation.
We're good, dude.
And I hope I made sense.
You're worrying about it way too much.
Yeah, I am actually. So,